Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts plays film roulette. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Waterman from Jacksonville, joined as always by May Finch, also from Jacksonville.
Hey, everyone.
And of course, Will Rotondi from Greenville, South Carolina.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going excellently. We've had a nice weekend, got a little bit of sun. There's still a nice little glare here. You may not be able to quite see it yet, but May was kind enough to invite Marianne and I out to a little morning hike down by the beach, and it was just lovely.
You're not really enough to beat the heat, you know?
No, definitely was not at all cool, but it was a great day nonetheless. A little sea breeze as we were getting to certain parts of the trail.
It helps.
For sure. Well, did you do anything fun this weekend?
Just man, I was lazy and played video games. I've got a couple of buddies that like to play Deep Rock Galactic, so we just hung out and probably a solid, I want to say with a break in between in the afternoon, but probably like a solid 5 hours total, just going through and mining away and blasting some aliens in space. So yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, I love like binge sessions, especially like if you're playing with buds, the time just melts away. It's great. Well, very cool. On today's episode, we will be discussing Terminator 2 and whether it is a unicorn or dead horse. That is to say, a sequel that enriches and expands the cinematic universe in a positive way, or if it is a big old stinker. But first, we have a brief little opener segment, and we're gonna obviously draw a side quest. For our opener, we wanted to just wish a very happy birthday to P.T. Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, one of my favorite directors of all time, who we just recently discussed as part of our There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men discussion. So happy birthday, P.T. Anderson. I'm looking up how old he is because I'm a bad host and I didn't do that. So 52 years old today, the day we're recording, June 26th. Do you guys have a favorite P.T. Anderson film?
I actually just saw Licorice Pizza like a couple weeks ago. And I don't know, I had mixed feelings about it. I think There Will Be Blood is still my favorite. It's funny because I actually don't think I'd seen any P.T. Anderson films until this year when I saw There Will Be Blood, but hard to go wrong with I Drink Your Milkshake. So
some days I hope that the legal title of that film is just changed to that, like just to make everybody right now. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, Licorice Pizza I saw as somebody who's seen almost all of his films. I was really expecting the shoe to drop. Like, I don't want to say too much, like, but I was expecting much worse things to happen in that film that actually do, because that's normally how it rolls. So I need another watch of that. Like his films I really seesaw back and forth. Like I usually have like a strong like for them or a strong dislike on first watch, and then it takes like one or two more watches at least before I really know how I feel. So how about you, Will? You got a favorite?
I think hands down it's gonna have to, well, by default really, it's gonna have to be There Will Be Blood. I mean, I do love the film by itself, but I don't really think, I'm trying to remember if there's anything I've seen of his other than maybe this is gonna be a silly question, did he do Boogie Nights? Was that?
Yes. Yeah.
So I've seen bits and pieces of that film, but not enough to say I've actually watched it, so that can't really count. But yeah, that's probably the only other thing that I know that he's done. And I think maybe I've heard of Punch Drunk Love with Adam Sandler? Yeah. And I haven't seen that either. And that was something that was sort of on my radar back when it came out, and I just never got around to watching it. So there's a couple other ones on there, I think, like The Master, and did he do like another one with Daniel Day-Lewis? Was there another film that he did with him?
Phantom Thread.
Okay, yeah, like the last one that Day-Lewis did. Okay.
Which is nice. Beautiful. It's about costume, or not costume design, but really fashion design, and it is incredibly P.T. Anderson. That's all I'll say about it. Like it's better to just kind of absorb that for what it is without knowing too much about it. But I really like that one as well. Some of the most beautiful, I think, costuming that, as you would imagine for a film that's about like the fashion world. yeah, of yore. Very good. Also Magnolia, with Tom Cruise and Philip Seymour Hoffman and just a bevy of other people as well was one of his. But I think my favorite was probably also There Will Be Blood, but Boogie Nights is like a very close second for me. I like the more I watch that film, the more I really, really love it. It's a little bit challenging because it's about the pornography industry in the 70s. It's not a very pleasant film in parts, but
a classically non-exploitative time and place.
yes, yeah. Which I think he does very well tackling sort of like the realities of that. Like it peels as the layers get kind of peeled back. There's certainly a very ugly underbelly, but it has a lot of heart, and one of my favorite soundtracks too, like of like 70s and 80s music. So you should watch it for no other reason than to see Burt Reynolds in one of his best performances, and then John C. Reilly, like who's impossible not to want to start giggling the moment he pops on screen, has like a really great side character in that. So
nice.
I digress. Happy birthday, P.T. Anderson. Both of you now have a reason to maybe celebrate. Pick a random P.T. Anderson film and watch it and report back. Let us know what you think. All righty. Well, let's have a side quest, shall we? Let's give these a little shuffle-roo.
Don't flip the table.
Yeah, don't flip the table.
Actually, know what? Don't listen to me. Flip the table. It makes it more exciting.
And we have a Throw Your Popcorn, which just as a quick recap is discuss the movie scene that made you throw your popcorn at the screen, either literally or figuratively. So anybody have anything that springs to mind? I know last time I think was it Bridge of Terabithia, or was that a Great Expectations? Don't remember, but
I think it was Bridge of Terabithia that I picked. Yeah.
Indiana Jones, the fourth one.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Indiana Fridge was pretty much for me. I couldn't. There's a lot of other scenes in that film that people like to rag on, and I can follow some of the criticism behind it, but literally when he survived a nuclear explosion by getting inside a giant fridge and getting launched like God knows how far across. I don't even know.
I mean, it's a ridiculous distance. Like
no, there's no way. Like, I mean, yeah. And I can suspend a certain degree of, I mean, it's Indiana Jones, so it's always been very spiritual. I mean, it's like, like whether it's dudes getting their hearts pulled out of their chests in the Temple of Doom, or just the, all the Christian mythology that's thrown into like the first and the second one. I mean, it's the freaking Ark of the Covenant in the first one, so it's like you kind of have to suspend disbelief. But I don't know, there's something about where you want to take science and you really want to play with the limits of what's possible that I just thought no, I couldn't. And that's just literally that was the only scene for me in that entire film, and I just thought no, I can't follow that. So
I wholly support your choice there.
I think there's a little bit of an age bias here, because I saw this when I was, still a kid, and I don't remember any of those scenes like standing out to me at all, because like it fit in perfectly with kid logic. It's like, yeah, you have this guy who's like supernaturally good at like finding treasures and fighting bad guys, and you have, like you said, Will, all this kind of like Christian mythology like embedded in it. So I'm just like, yeah, he can't die. Of course he's going to survive getting thrown in a fridge for a mile.
From a nuclear bomb mine. Not out of the back of a plane or anything else, which would have been equally ridiculous, but yeah.
So I gave all of that a pass when I watched it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I will agree though, like as an adult, when I watch something where, as long as they are trying to make it scientific, yeah, I'll buy into anything. But the second they like make up some like scientism mumbo jumbo explanation, I get upset.
I think what was the lead lining of the refrigerator was like their kind of justification, right? And never mind that the temperature like difference alone would probably bake you inside of that. But, like,
as we all know, lead is very much like a cushion. So when you terminal velocity or anything that you reach when you come back down to the ground, it's just like a pillow.
All right, so here's a question for you, Will, about that. Do you know what the significance of the refrigerator is in the larger context of like unused ideas in adjacent to Spielberg? Do you?
Oh, I'm not entirely sure where this is going, so I'd rather hear what you have
No,
to say
throw
about
it a
that.
guess. You might be right. You might be right.
Hmm.
So that is a nod or Easter egg to something that is in Spielberg's past that was unused.
Oh, unused. Oh man, can I get a hint as to where it might
Uh,
have?
so one of your favorite movies
Oh. Mhm.
that you talked about in our session 0
Oh
has to
man,
do with
no
that.
way. Seriously, Back to the Future was gonna
Mhm.
have shut
That
up.
was so a refrigerator was going to be the time machine in the original Back to the Future.
I love that.
And
no.
and they were like, kids are going to like die, like they're going to crawl into the refrigerator trying to play Back to the Future. We can't, there's no way we can't do this. Is gonna set a
Wow.
terrible example and it will lead to the death of children, so you can't use that. So that's why a refrigerator became a DeLorean, which is way cooler. Like so
Man,
they made the right call for so many reasons there. But yeah, there's your
that's
little bit of movie
hilarious.
trivia adjacent to Indiana Jones, or now you know something you didn't.
I'm honestly
That's
impressed that the
awesome.
studio thought through that, because I feel like no one cares these days.
Yeah,
I,
like
who knows? I don't recall like who the person was. Like maybe it was their legal team, or who knows. But I do know safety was the so whoever spoke up in that meeting, like good for you.
Yeah, I feel like if you had a movie with like time traveling bleach, it would get greenlit. Like
Yeah.
Tide Pods.
Tide Pods, yeah.
time pods.
Hey, how many are we
Absolutely.
supposed to take, guys?
Well, very good. Nice pick, Will.
Thanks.
So let's move on to our main quest, the meat and potatoes of today's episode, which is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Of course, as always, I'm going to start with some initial impressions, and then what I've really done here, because I think so ordinarily we would do like a brief summary for the audience, right? But I thought, because this film's structure follows so closely to the original Terminator, I want to break down our discussion after the initial impressions into 3 parts. So Act 1, which is the arrival and initial confrontation; Act 2, which is the rescue and on the run; and then the finale, right? Both of the films kind of follow that structure, and I think the finale is probably the biggest difference between the two. So that's, if it's okay with you two, I think how I want to tackle this, because we are, after all, assessing if it enriches the world of the Terminator. So those 2 films are kind of in dialogue as we're going to be discussing this. I thought it'd be kind of cool to compare and contrast. So we'll start with initial impressions. May, I'm going to call on you because this was your first viewing. You came over
Yeah.
to my home and watched it with Marianne and I in an audience setting. What you make of it?
I guess I was just like happily surprised, because I feel like it's kind of a 50-50 toss up if any like film that's kind of risen to cult status is actually good, or if it's just like was so creative and zany it got a cult following, and that's why it's stayed in the cultural memory. This was actually good, so I really enjoyed it. It was fun. I think I mentioned when I was there, I'm not usually a huge action movie fan. I would say John Wick is the only franchise I've really loved. And I guess I can add Terminator to that too now. Especially with like the car chases, just because they're so overdone at this point. I don't know if they were already overdone when this movie came out, but I was actually like excited and engaged in the car chase scene, which was another happy surprise to me. So yeah, overall I loved it. I liked that it kind of gave a nod to the campiness of the original, um, while also making it more like believably serious and sincere in a cool way. So yeah.
Awesome. I love that you loved it. Like, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking when you have to introduce somebody to something that you really have a tremendous amount of affection for. And
Oh yeah.
I just worship the ground that this film walks on. Again, I have the T800 how directions work on camera anyway, right there. The hand that I bought, like I paid money that I'm not going to admit to get the special edition that came with that, just because I love the movie that much. And I don't normally buy collector's editions and stuff, but yeah. How about you, Will?
Oh, I love Terminator. I love the second one especially, but I've enjoyed Terminator on and off. I think I've probably seen T2 a lot more than I watched the original one. Because even growing up, I'm trying to remember like what the first rated R movie was that I watched, but it was probably around that time. Like I feel like Speed was the first rated R film that I watched, and then shortly after that, Terminator and Terminator 2 came into the mix. But yeah, no, I've enjoyed going back and watching, I guess watching it because of the storyline, which is weird because I don't normally gravitate to a lot of dark sci-fi most of the time, but just to have something like that where it was the suspense behind it and watching all of the really cool, I mean, for that time, even like the special effects that they did were amazing. And I'm a sucker for models. So like the original Terminator, and how even though it's campy to go back and watch like all the model work that they did, and some of that too in T2, I thought was really cool. So, and yeah, I think without going into any more detail, just generally speaking, I've always loved it.
Yeah, I've already been very vocal about how I feel about this movie, but it's at least once a year. Like this might be one that I like squeeze in. This is certainly the second time this year that I've watched T2, because Gio had never seen it, so it's like, well, now we're gonna go ahead and fix that and watch this. But
so
yeah,
you need to have like a running list of who you're trying to show Terminator 2 to. That way you can have like a set screening every year.
Yeah, I mean, if like, you know how there's like that meme, if I win the lottery, like I'm not going to announce it, but there will be signs.
Yep.
The sign will be that like I will perpetually have a screen rented out at like one of the local theaters, and this is the only film that would put, and it'll just be free. Like if you've never seen T2, come see it on the big screen on Chris. You'd be like, Waterman, did you win the lottery? Maybe.
That's beautiful.
All right, so let's get down into the nitty gritty. So as I said, we'll break it up into kind of the three acts of the film, because I mean, really, these are not beat for beat the same, but like shockingly close, like in structure. So let's start with the arrival and initial confrontation. So basically, if we're talking Terminator 2, from the opening credits all the way through the chase, sequence with the T1000 and Arnie on the Los Angeles freeway and the little canals. So well, I'll start with you this time. So keeping in mind the unicorn versus dead horse discussion, thinking of like back from like the original Terminator to this, and how like those films compare with one another through that first act, like what's your read?
I think it definitely adds to it because there's a lot more. There's the action of like the chase scene itself, I thought was really cool. I mean, it's up the ante in terms of the as opposed to like in the original Terminator, where it's just the shootout and it's this robot that's chasing Sarah Connor through the club, and they're hiding out like when she and Reese are hiding out in the parking garage, and then that little chase scene that goes on there in the police car. Don't get me wrong, like it's good. It's like the original is very much very tight in terms of its own storytelling. I just thought the second one's sort of up the ante in terms of just how much destruction is going to happen along the way, and sort of the peril that the characters are in, and just sort of feeling more suspense about exactly how they're going to get out of it, and what they have to do to try and fight this new threat that they're dealing with. So I enjoyed the original part. Like I thought the special effects definitely improved from the first one later, obviously bigger budget as well. But yeah, I just thought it was cleaner. I thought it was more threatening, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, even though I consider the first one to be like, I think you can make the argument the first Terminator film at its core is as a horror film. It's a monster movie, or like really like at its heart. like I do think the T-1000 kind of carries that tradition forward. Like that is a very scary, menacing for somebody who is not physically imposing. There's a lot of intensity and cool things that they do to make it no less, terrifying. This relentless thing. How about you, May?
I'm actually really glad that the second kind of follow the same formula as the first, because when you do that, it really highlights the small differences between the two. And for me, that's what really added to the tension and suspense, because in the first movie, and I think I mentioned, I generally don't like voiceovers. It's hard for me to get used to. But like you know more in the first movie about like who Reese is and who the Terminator is before that confrontation happens with the shootout in the club. And so you're like not so worried about who Reese is, while at the same time Sarah Connors is still freaking out because she thinks that Reese is the Terminator, whereas you already know it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Whereas, like, spoiler alert, there's a twist in the second movie where it's not Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it subverts your expectations in a cool way. And I was telling Chris, like, I didn't see it coming, but I did have this kind of growing anxiety about the T-1000's character because he lacked the friendliness and humanity that we saw with Reese in the first movie, right? And there just seems something kind of threatening and menacing about him, and that increased up until the roses fell and we had that like epic shootout at the arcade. So I really like that they followed kind of a similar formula. I don't really have an opinion on which one is stronger because, again, I think they're kind of their own things. I was thinking about, I don't know if you guys saw that there's a meme going around that had the screen grab from when John Connor's friend is asked by the T-1000 as in a police uniform for him, like, hey, have you seen this kid? And he says no. I think the caption is something like, this one kid not snitching saved the world, or something like that.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Anyway, so I think like the fact that it's still going around in meme form in 2022 is a good sign that it has had cultural staying power.
There's that and the payphone scene where it was like, the play on that was like, are your parents into like Pokemon? And it's like, yeah, sure. And then like somebody aims like a Yu-Gi-Oh or something, and it's like your foster parents are dead. Like it's like I see that like done over and over and over again too. So yeah, for me, like I think where like this really does an awesome job following the same structure, but like I think like kind of learns the lessons from the first one a little bit, or maybe is able to like springboard off the first one, is like I do feel like we get to the action a little bit sooner and there's way less exposition, right? Like it's assuming that who John Connor is, who Sarah Connor is, what the stakes are. Like you don't have to explain what a Terminator is. I think all of that works really, really well. I mean, there's some exposition with the T-800 kind of explaining to John about like the T-1000 and who sent them and things like that. But I do think like it respects the audience intelligence enough, voiceover aside, like in the beginning, like kind of explaining that to really kind of keep the momentum going. I also really, really enjoy the plot twists that I guess was ruined by marketing. I was so delighted that you were able to sort of avoid the pop culture like zeitgeist around this film to not really know like who the good guy necessarily was. That's such an awesome pure way to have experienced it. Again, everything from like trailers to action figures like made it very clear before this movie ever came out like who the good guy was. And
Yeah.
I think it is constructed in a very meticulous way to feel like a reveal, right? Like you're not really 100% sure. So I think that's really, really smart as well.
Well, what's funny is I didn't actually completely avoid it, and I was surprised when I watched the first Terminator, and I was like, oh, he doesn't ever have like a redemption arc or a good guy twist. I thought so I thought that was from the first movie, and I was like, okay, no, I guess they just like he was seen as like a cool action figure or whatever.
Yeah.
So it confused me for the first movie, not this one.
I think budget, and it's hard to ignore. Like, I mean, we could say that like a film, film's quality like shouldn't or like, be judged on its budget, but it's very apparent from one to, I mean, one is very impressive for the very meager budget that it had. Two's ridiculous. Like that whole, I mean, that chase sequence holds up so incredibly well. Like it's just, some of the stunts are just insane still, like to this day. The motorcycle coming off the top of the freeway and landing, the whole entire tow truck coming off the freeway, all that stuff is just, it's remarkable, really. And I got to give a shout out before I forget in this episode to Brad Fidel, who did the soundtracks to both of the films. Really like treat yourself to like an hour-long listen with some headphones to hear, I mean, like the full extent of the score with like no other sounds. It is a beautiful, weird score. There's a lot of synthesizers, but he used a lot of industrial sounds and got very creative with some stuff. And it's one of my favorite movie scores because it's so unlike anything, like really, like for both the films, but the second one in particular. But yeah. Anybody have anything else to add on kind of like the first act of the film? So let's talk a quick moment. So in one, you've got sort of the target meeting like the protector. I think in this one of my favorite like sequences like of all time, and like I love the dynamic between the T-800 and John Connor, is when John Connor is so thrilled by the prospect of having a Terminator that he sicks it on two guys that are just trying to help him. And then great bit of child acting where he realizes the consequences and sort of the power that he holds in his hands very quickly. He's shocked and scared and sort of like horrified at like what almost happens like in that moment. But what do you guys think of their like interplay and kind of like where they start off like in this?
I mean, I'm blanking on his name, but the actor for John Connor I agree, is very talented, especially for his age. And I think does like a good job of portraying a kid that clearly has had a rough life. He's had the rug pulled out from under him a few times and like generally hasn't really had any power or ability to trust someone. And I get why like having an all-powerful 100% obedient machine man is like the best thing that could happen to you in that circumstance. And like we'll get to the ending. That's part of why I felt like the ending was unnecessarily cruel to John, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
I loved it. I thought it was, well, and I thought, it's so different than the first one because, he's this terrifying, like you said, it's the monster movie. And so to have it more like this interplay between this kid and a robot, both learning from each other, and at the same time, it's like comedic relief in this film. It lightens up something that was otherwise just very dark in the original, versus this action movie that's sort of a dark comedy in a lot of ways. And so that was very refreshing, but also like sort of mirroring what you both have said, is that they got a really great actor from out of the kid, and then just Arnold Schwarzenegger is great at playing deadpan. So
yeah, anytime the Terminator tries to be human or like not fuck up, like it is like it's comedic and it's intentionally constructed that way. And I think that that's a huge check mark in how you make a sequel feel familiar, but also kind of like push it in new and interesting directions, right? Amazing. Well, let's go to Act 2. So again, structurally a little bit similar. So you have sort of a rescue sequence. Actually, in both cases, it's Sarah Connor. So in the first one, kind of the police station. The second one, it's Pescadero State Hospital. And then there's sort of a time where these characters are on the run from the authorities, isolated, alone, not really sure what to do, trying to basically just avoid this killing machine. So that's a great segue. We'd be completely remiss to not talk about Sarah Connor, by the way. So this is, I think, a great time to talk about the evolution of that character. And May, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
I did have a small throw your popcorn moment in the first movie, watching her interactions with Reese, because I know the point of it is it's all very rushed and like his lines are very cheesy and unrealistic too. but yeah, just like the idea of this woman like being head over heels in love with this man who basically came out of a dumpster, and
Don't
spent one
judge.
and spent one night with her, and also kind of upended her life, in a way. I don't know. That kind of made me mad. But
Yeah, it's one of those things you have to just
yeah,
just go, okay, it's star-crossed lovers, whatever. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel you. I totally feel you. Like that line of like, we loved a lifetime's worth. I'm like, you met this guy like 8 hours ago, but I feel you.
It's the Disney princess timeline. Sarah Connors is a Disney princess. We'll just frame it that way. In the second movie, however, I thought it was really cool that I don't know, I felt like she was like actually driving the action and a lot more autonomous. Although she did kind of have a nice moment towards the end of the first film with being the one to actually finally kill the T-800 in the smusher. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that the angle they took with her was that she would have been, I mean, trying to do what she could to change the future, but also being upfront about that when she's like caught. That kind of surprised me. I don't know how I feel about that plot point, because I feel like she would have the intelligence to know she should make up some other reason. Or maybe she thought it'd be preferable to end up in an asylum rather than jail. I don't know. But
yeah, I think if you're trying to blow up a computer factory, no matter what you tell, like it's probably not
you're
gonna
gonna get
wash
locked up somewhere.
somewhere.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, no, it was cool to see her evolution. She's just like a really badass character. And I see why she became like an icon after this. I want those glasses.
Sunglasses, yeah, those are very, very cool. What do you make of like again, like I'm going to use air quotes for like the rescue sequence, because it seems like she's got it kind of under control. The only reason that she kind of gets briefly recaptured is because she's hauling ass thinking that like this Terminator's here to kill her. But what do you make of that? Like I don't know, like that transition I thought was such a nice twist on it, right? Like, did you enjoy that hospital sequence?
I did. In fact, the only thing that made me upset is like, and I get why she says it. It's, for me, the perfect conflict in a film is when both characters are very justified, but they're still terrible to each other. And like, the way she treats her son is really shitty at times, because she berates him for coming to save her. And it's like, of course he did, because he's a little kid. He's been alone and he's terrified. And he wants his mom. And she just like does not give him any like empathy or sympathy. It's just like, why the fuck did you do this? Never do this again. Like, I can handle myself kind of thing. And it's like, it's sad, but it's also very revealing of their characters, because like she lost Reese because he was protecting her. So I get why she would not want the person that she feels like she was placed on the planet to birth and protect risking his life for her. So yeah, that was just like a very raw moment, and like, oh.
What's wrong with your eyes? Like, the way that all plays out is it's devastating, but in a beautiful way.
Coming up from the floor of the T-1000, that was a really cool part too.
Oh my god, I was telling
dude.
May, my dad got in hot water because he took me to see this in theaters when I was 5. And because my parents had separated recently, and I'm sure I begged him to go because I had the action figures, but that I had nightmares for like months, and like would like step on like the tile floor and be like, hey, is anybody down there? Yeah, T-1000, you gonna come up out of the floor? But yeah, that I mean, again, we take for granted like how basic like those special, but back then like would have been impossible for people to really understand like how it would have seemed like magic, I'm sure, because CGI had only been used in I think technically 2 other films, Young Sherlock Holmes and The Abyss, and that was it. Jurassic Park would come out of course a couple years later, and people would become much more familiar with CGI. But yeah, how about you? What do you make of the hospital sequence? Again, I'm going to say like the rescue, like and kind of air quotes, because That's what's intended to be, but I think it's very different from the first film.
I just love that Sarah Connor gets to like kick everyone's ass. Like that was for me, and she does it so like fluidly, and then she just takes up that baton and just sort of like shimmies down the hallway. Like, no, I just, it's great. My wife and I watched it actually when we were when I was watching it for this podcast, and when she does that, it's like my wife was like, she is so hot right now. Like Rachel just loves Sarah Connor's character, and I have to agree, man. I mean, she is just very empowered, and she is a badass, and she knows how to get shit done. And anybody who's in her way, it's like, no, either get on my team or you better move. And so just to watch that versus like kind of like what sort of mirroring what you guys have talked about before in the first one, where it's very much she's just kind of going with Reese's plan, whatever that may be, and until she finally at the very end, it's up to her to get the killing blow against the Terminator. And this one, with all the training that she's got now, and just how she knows how to fight, and she knows how to get around anybody who's trying to take her down, and not necessarily be lethal about it, just know how to incapacitate the people that are around her. I just thought that was really cool. And to see that, for me, I liked the villain aspect of like this with the T-1000, and sort of the ability to just shapeshift into anything to a certain degree. I know that it does have its limitations, but just that alloy that's able to shapeshift and either mimic other people, or to turn into these weapons that it can use, and just that whole chase sequence where he jumps onto the back of the police car and uses his little hooks to hang on. And so, yeah, just stuff like that. I just thought that was so cool as an idea for that type of robotic villain. I thought it was interesting, because I don't really remember anything else around that time frame being sort of on par with that sort of threatening character. You mentioned the Abyss, and I think that in a lot of ways, sort of the CGI in a couple of scenes in that film mirror a lot of like the liquid sort of effects that you get out of the T-1000. But yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was thrilling to see the evolution of the character, and then also to get that interplay between her and her son, and then also to get a lot more from Arnold's character, from that Terminator version that comes back, because he's a lot more vocal in this one as well. And so just to kind of see as he's learning about their characters and that interplay, I thought was really cool.
Yeah, it's a very creative film, which I think is another reason I really liked it, is because sometimes action is just like guns, explosions, and that's it. Whereas like you have so many possibilities with the T-1000, and I feel like they did take advantage of that fact in a cool way. Also, you reminded me of the part where she breaks the nose of the guy that licked her, and I did cheer when she did that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And man, it's like there's always every like asylum, or like anywhere there's like psychiatric help in like Hollywood. I don't know what it is about that. I mean, hopefully that's not like reflective of too much of reality, but it's like there's always that one creeper in every single version that does stuff, and then you're just like, you're waiting for it. You're like, when are they going to get their comeuppance? And it's so nice. It's so nice just to see him just get whacked. So
very satisfying.
Yeah.
Those are real blows that she's raining down on him, because apparently he kept blowing some of the takes where I forget. I think like it's supposed to be when he's trying to help subdue her, and it was like a very painful thing for her to have to like keep. There's a lot of physical effort. So apparently when she's smacking the shit out of him, she's really smacking the shit out of him, because she's like was frustrated. It had been like a really tough day of like filming or something. This is on the IMDb trivia, so take it with a grain of salt. But like, yeah, apparently she was really whacking him pretty hard. I'm sure that was a stunt stick, like not like a real billy club, but still, I'm sure it'd feel great. She's got some pretty big guns. Like I wouldn't want to be hit even with a stunt stick by Linda Hamilton.
So Linda Hamilton really is a badass. So you better watch it. Watch out.
Yeah, I think one of the things I love about this one over two is that like it takes some time to like slow down the action, like so to speak. And when I say action, I mean like chases, guns, and explosions. There is a brief chase at the end of like when they're leaving the hospital, but this scene is all about suspense, right? It really, like, this whole sequence is like to establish that Sarah's become very capable, and that she is relatively fearless. You don't really see her any kind of rattled until the T-800 comes out of the elevator, which is very understandable. But I think it's such a great suspenseful sequence, like how it's constructed with her hiding behind pillars, not even realizing that the guard she's hiding from is a T-1000, right? Like, but she doesn't know, has no idea that this thing's hunting her. So it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. The Terminator's told us, like, if he finds her, like, she's dead meat, like he's going to copy her, right? And yeah, like obviously the chase scene out with the sword coming down through the elevator ceiling is incredible. And again, just a great character moment for Sarah Connor, right? Like, you contrast this to the first film where she would just normally be kind of ducking and hiding, and her first instinct is to grab the gun out of the back of the T-800's pants, and she just starts fucking shooting. Like, it is telling you without telling you that, like, no, like, she's not afraid, like, she is going to leap into action, and it's so satisfying. Like, I love that sequence, and just seeing, like, she doesn't really stop to ask questions. She's like, okay, this thing is trying to, like, fuck us up, here's something that I can do about it, and like just boom, like it's amazing. Kind of adjacent to like or in this like same act is kind of more that like on the run, stuff that you saw in the first film, which is a nice little deep breath before you go into the finale. So I wanted to kind of get your take on, this is where like that bond really solidifies between like the T-800 and John, and we see Sarah really is sort of separate, right? Like, I think in a lot of these sequences, and I think May, you pointed out, she's a little cold and callous to her son, and as you're watching this, you're like, it doesn't seem like she loves him, and then of course, like, you kind of realize a little bit later on that's not necessarily the case. She's sort of hard on herself. What did you guys think of, I guess, for lack of a better word, like the Terminator, like becoming like a dad figure, in those scenes? Because I mean, again, the VO kind of like really drives the point home, in case you weren't understanding. The high fives and stuff is what was going on there. But what did you make of Daddy T-800?
I thought it was interesting. Especially like the way the voiceover phrases it, because she's just kind of like, it's implied through some of the like back and forth between John and the T-800 when he's talking about his mom, that like she's had a whole slew of boyfriends that did not make the cut, basically, and it's because she was waiting for this perfect killing machine.
Yeah, well, he's like, oh, she just opened her mouth about Judgment Day, and that's all she wrote. Like, like John, even like he even as a young child sort of recognizes, like, just he's like, don't mention Judgment Day, don't mention Judgment Day, and then whoop. Oh, you don't know about Judgment Day? Yeah. So here's what's gonna happen.
First date topics, right?
Yeah. I just imagine like modern days, like internet dating, like first date, you're over at the pizzeria having a beer and a slice. Like, oh boy.
It's even better if it's like speed dating, right? Like, just get that out of the way real fast.
How good are you at jerry-rigging explosions?
Oh, well, let me tell you. I took a class about how to do that.
How easily can you get assault rifles? I've got a bunker. You've got a what? I do love that aspect of her character, that she's just got this like doomsday bunker like already ready to go. And it's kind of implied this is just one of many caches that like she's got like around the world.
She's a
John
prepper.
Cassidy, he mentions that he grew up in Nicaragua. Like, I was like, what? That's kind of cool as a young kid, minus the riding around in helicopters and shooting machine guns, I guess. But like, yeah. Yeah, I think this is like, we're like, I don't know, like some of the best like moments for me, like come with the T-800 and John, and as an audience member, like getting invested and wanting to see the T-800 like stick around and be there, right? Like, this is the first time John seems halfway well adjusted, like he's sort of accepted his position, and that all this is real. Earlier in the film, he's like, everything I was led to believe was all bullshit, and like he's got all this frustration, and Now it's like, oh wow, like okay, like so my mom wasn't mentally ill, like this is actually something that is happening. Even better, like I now have this amazing invincible like killing machine that's going to be there for me, and like teaching him phrases and all of that kind of stuff. You can like tell that he like wants this thing to kind of be cool, right? Like not just be present, but like to
Yeah.
be a buddy, essentially. I don't know. I love all those like little sequences. I think they're so important to elevating the film, like to give it a heart, basically, right?
It's cute. I couldn't help but like look at John and like see a kid who like in a lot of ways takes care of Sarah. Like she's a very badass like character, but I feel like he still feels like emotionally he has to take care of her. He's literally like handing her clips when she runs out of bullets. Like I feel like he's generally very averse to any kind of authority figure, and I think that's partly why he gets along with the T-800 so well, is because T-800 has no authority. He just does whatever John says, basically. But is also someone he doesn't have to take care of. And to me, that's kind
Great
of
point.
the basis of that connection, which is like a little bit sad because like it's clear like Sarah's taking great care of John in terms of like trying to avert this future disaster, make sure he gets through it, but there's not really an emotional care there, and I feel like it definitely comes through in how like John has like John's behavioral issues that he has.
Yeah, I think there is. It's she just refuses to let him see it, right? Like you at the end, like we'll get there. Like we do get to see that finally, like, but it's like she's almost walled her because she's like, this isn't what you need. You don't need nurturing. Like you don't need like maternal affection. That's only going to soften you up, and it's very I mean, it's horrible, you know, to witness, because I mean, I think you could make the argument that it's like it's borderline child abuse, really. Like, you know, any other circumstances, like, you know, sure, like it's a sci-fi, like, you know, fantasy like scenario, but it is pretty abusive behavior towards your child.
Whereas the T-800 does indulge him on silly stuff, right? Like tries to learn his lingo and will like stand on one foot for him and like stuff like that. And like that stuff Sarah would just like shoot him a death glare if he asked her to do.
And for me, the I didn't like the voiceovers, truthfully. I thought they detracted from the scenes. And don't get me wrong, like I love the character of Sarah Connor and I love Linda Hamilton. I just didn't like the voiceovers. It felt awkward. Some of the stuff that she said still felt kind of weird, just overall. And I guess kind of getting back to what we were joking about her character always, you know, trying to find that perfect guy that was going to be there to believe what she was dealing with. But in some respects, it just I don't know. I feel like there's just so much to have that be like a point where it is PTSD what she went through with dealing with this first robot, to just suddenly trusting him so much. Like, I don't know, if it were me, and I this is after going through like, you know, all the dark sci-fi that we've seen with other sort of AI ideas about the future, like Cylons and Battlestar Galactica, or you know, where there's always that question about, are they really always on your side, or is there like another little switch that's going to flip and maybe he's going to be bad again later? I feel like there's a lot more trusting that goes on between her and the T-800 in this. Just maybe it's for the plot, or maybe there's something else there that she senses when she watches him and John. We do get the feedback from him to John that he's programmed to listen to whatever he tells him to do. So as an audience, we take that faith that he's going to be there and it's going to be okay. And it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, so there's sort of that too. Like we want him to be the good guy. But for Sarah Connor's character, it just seemed very, I felt like there had to have been a little bit more there that just wasn't in the cut to try and establish sort of that trust a bit more than just this is what we're dealing with right now in this moment. For her to be so trusting of him to be with her son moving forward seemed odd. But then again, she's had to kind of go on the fly with a lot about what the future is going to be like, just based on, like you said, with Reese being there for hours, and suddenly it's like all this, plot is crammed into that little amount of time and trust. So, it's sort of it goes with it. It mirrors the first one in that respect, and so it makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, what choice do you have? And also, like, if this thing really wanted to kill him, They wouldn't ride
They would have
around the
done it
city
already.
for an entire evening, like on a motorcycle. Like, let's roll to Act 3, which is the finale. Right off the rip, just gonna say no awkward sex scene. That's already a huge plus. Would would have been odd considering the protector, I guess, like this time
Just a
especially.
bit.
Bounce, chicka bounce, chicka bounce.
But yeah, so let's talk about the finale, right? Like, so I think what I really in particular want to focus on, obviously, like the action sequences as well, but like the resolution of the film. And I did want to touch a bit on what kicks off the finale, which is Sarah going to Miles Dyson's house. Like, I think like that's a very important character moment, and I've got some things to say, but I want to hear from you guys first. So go ahead. Will, I guess we'll start with you first on this one. So
I had a hard time watching that scene where she goes into Dyson's home. The first time when I was a kid watching that.
yeah.
And I mean, even now, especially in our current climate, I have a really hard time watching that scene. And it's just because you want to root for Sarah Connor, but it's like, it's also her taking that to the extreme and her decision to just want to like murder this guy, and to see his kid try and defend him in their house in this home invasion essentially is just, it's really like, it's an oh shit moment in a lot of ways. And it's just, it's great that Sarah doesn't follow through on it, but at the same point, I always felt bad for Dyson because it's this guy who, very much like all the other characters in the Terminator universe, are thrown into this realization of how shitty the future is going to be and what part they do or don't play in it, and we have to go and fix this right now. And he just seemed like an all-around, like, genuinely nice guy who was trying to do something that was going to help humanity, and suddenly realized that everything that he was going to do was going to cause the end of the world or have some influence on that. And so, for him to then want to fix that, but then, what happens to him in the end, it's just like, he gets a really shitty end. I guess I'm not really sure what else would have happened, because if they had found out he was part of blowing up that building, what's the result that you think is going to happen to him afterwards if he's not dead like he ends up in the film. But it's like, I felt bad for his character the whole way through. I think at the end though, in spite of that, the rest of the storyline is like a kick-ass action sequence, because you got the T-800 with the minigun, you got the action with all the cops, the fact that he says he's not going to kill anybody, so watching him like try to immobilize a bunch of the police without any fatalities and just kicking their butts was pretty awesome. I think that the special effects too, I mean, coming back in with like the T-1000 and sort of his whole thing, how he gets around all of that. The chase scene again, we got another one that comes up with the helicopter, which was really cool. And just watching how much he is very, like, the T-1000 to me was always sort of menacing, because he's never really, you don't see him. I mean, the first one, the T-800, was never really like worried about anything going on either, but it's just sort of like that in control, cool, he's going to just zero in on you, and then once he finds you, man, he's going to start coming and he's not going to stop. And so that was always really cool to watch that whole sequence play out. But it's kind of rambling about my thoughts on that, so I'm gonna wrap it up on there and pass it back to you guys. But those are sort of the highlights that I thought about, at least sort of leading up to the big climax at the very, very end. But we can come back to that.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree. That's the home invasion scene is very uncomfortable. In a way, I think it is partially intentional, but I think like
Yes.
with where we're at now, with like, largely white policemen like barging into Black people's homes unannounced and like that kind of thing, like this feels even more uncomfortable now in 2022. And yeah, I agree. I feel really bad for Miles Dyson. It is interesting that Sarah kind of starts going on a rant even after the moment's been largely diffused about like how scientists are always like this. They'll build like nuclear weapons, never thinking about or taking accountability for like how those weapons are going to be used and that kind of thing. And I can't remember if it's John or the T-800, but someone's just
John.
like,
Yeah.
shut up, mom, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like,
we
we
got
don't need
bigger
this
fish to
right now.
fry. Yeah, be constructive, I think is what he says. Yeah, I need to learn.
Right. Which is great because like they are kind of yin and yang in a way, in terms of like they are both, at least at this point in the film, knowledgeable of and accepting of what's going to happen in the future. And I think Sarah feels very defeated in that, and that kind of fuels her extremism. Whereas like John, I think partly because he's a kid, has a more hopeful outlook and extends more humanity to people like Dyson than Sarah does. And I think that it is because it's an uncomfortable moment, but it does, like, I think in an important way, like complicate her character, and show that like, one, she's still dealing with trauma, and it has like in some ways dehumanized her and like made her less willing to like, she could have just gone to Dyson's house and been like, hey, I need to like talk to you about this and show you this thing, and showed him the Terminator and tried to have a conversation, right? Um, but instead she went in with guns blazing because that's kind of like what she's figured she has to do at this point, because she's been in so many life and death situations. So yeah, I like that it kind of complicated her character, and like there's the I think it's called like a Mary Sue like kind of effect with like super like overpowered female protagonists. And I like when any protagonist has kind of like a moral gray zone that they enter or spend some time in, right?
Yeah.
So I liked that scene was in there, but it was definitely uncomfortable and like has probably aged so poorly compared to the rest of the film.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really critical scene to the movie. I mean, it's an unfortunate like unintentional side effect that like current events have sort of made it a little bit harder to watch than it already was. And it was, I think, well, like I agree with you, it was always a very tough like sequence to begin with. I think it is important, and for like one key reason is that like John and the T-800 are too late to actually stop her when they arrive, but she makes the choice on her own. And I think that's a
Yeah.
key component to keeping that character right there, like with the audience, to be able to continue to root for her, is that she makes the choice on her own. I think if John and the T-800 show up and like stop her, you're at best like you doubt sort of like who she is, like at her core at that point, or what she might be capable of. Whereas like watching her like decide to put the gun down, like despite doing some terrible stuff like along the way, like she kind of stops on the brink. And it's it's a good bit of like a beautiful bit of character building, I think. She also becomes dangerously close to becoming a Terminator. Like I was watching that sequence this most recent time going like, oh my god, like you could tell somebody like out of context that like, oh, Linda Hamilton played the Terminator like in this film, and like here's an action sequence where she's trying to take out like a computer programmer, and it would be totally believable.
Right.
Like how methodical she is, like just trying to snipe them and then fully automatic fire, and then until obviously she starts getting like yelly and screamy and all that stuff. Like she is very Terminator-esque, and I think that's probably by design as well. But what about
Really good point.
what about the like kind of like the final like chase? I do want to talk about like the last little bit for just a couple minutes, but like final chase sequence, man, the T-1000 in the helicopter.
Was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like I was telling May, that helicopter pilot like really flew underneath like a freeway like twice to get that shot. I mean, I think again talking about upping the stakes, but it's also kind of nice that like what kind of compels them there is like, or like what brings them to that point is that they go on the offensive, which again is a very different feel from the first movie where it's reactive, right? Like they're running away, whereas like they get to sort of run towards like controlling their destiny, which thematically is like a big part of like what this movie's all about, right? Like the future's not set, like take control of your own fate. And I think it's kind of cool that like the chase scene is it's similar to I mean, right down to like they wipe out and then get back in the car, and then there's like another little bit of like of a chase that happens after that. But it is kind of on the heels of them getting to take some decisive action, which is which is really cool. My favorite bit, it was like the inversion of "I'll be back," where like in the first film when he says that, it's like, I'm gonna drive into this building and kill a bunch of people, and this, like, I'm gonna drive in this building and pull your asses out of the fire, right? Like, again, not that the Terminator would recognize it or it would register, but he's putting himself at risk basically to like rescue somebody. And I just, that inversion, so cool. Well, let's just talk about the end, which is like, I always get a little teary-eyed. So you know, the T1000 T800 have their climactic inevitable battle, couple of good little like hand-to-hand sequences, but the ultimate resolution of the film is that the T800 reveals that to really stop Judgment Day, he's going to have to sacrifice himself. You know, and there's a sort of discussion and conversation. May, I want to hear from you first on this one, because it was so great to again see somebody react to that to the first time, because it is a very universal reaction, I think, to that, where it's like, what? No.
Because I personally was not convinced. I'm like, or I mean, earlier in this, I can't remember if it was in the first Terminator in this one, but they revealed that they can like continue to operate for like 120 years or something like that, right?
Mhm.
And it would be to their advantage to have a Terminator on their side, especially if, you know, something happens and then maybe someone in another part of the world develops the same tech and Judgment Day does end up happening in a different way. Like, it'd be super useful to have a Terminator protector. Like, strategically, it would make
You
sense
have
to keep him
unknowingly
around.
predicted. You've unknowingly
Yeah,
predicted
I
and
was gonna say.
summarized the plot
Yep.
of one of the Terminator sequels. I just want you to know.
Yep. It's true.
Well, Hollywood,
true.
I'm available for work.
Yeah.
But like, so yeah, I didn't buy it. It felt just like, oh, we have to like, it just felt like a pointless twist to me. I hated it. Also, it felt like John has lost so much in his life. Just like, give him this. He needs a friend, a therapy Terminator. Like,
Therapy Terminator. I mean, I suppose like to be a little bit of a like, he's not in great shape, the T800.
no.
He's not blending in, is he? You're not going into a Denny's and having like a Grand Slam breakfast with that sitting next to you. Like,
No, and I guess the thing is, like, I thought that the skin could repair because they have like that whole conversation earlier when he has all these bullet holes and he's like, yeah, that'll heal up soon. So
oh yeah, but he's missing like an arm, you know, like it's just like servos
Anakin
like sticking out.
Skywalker that shit. I don't know,
Nice.
but
I feel you though. Like, I mean, it is a cruel twist of fate, and I think like again, it's a choice, I think, to really kind of drive that knife in a little bit, and
yeah.
it's meant to be a bit of a tearjerker moment. I think it's successful largely, but how about you? Do you remember like the first time you saw this, like how you felt when you realized the Daddy T800's going bye-bye?
I got kind of the same way, kind of the, well, you know, seems like that might not really work in your favor, but I can understand the logic behind why you think that's the way to go. And he's sort of the one to bring it up anyway. He thinks that that's the best way to do it, so they kind of follow along with his plan. But yeah, you're never really sure, especially with the whole, well, and I guess because of the fact that Terminator in and of itself is very much paradox, because John Connor doesn't exist unless the future that he's fighting exists, technically, since Reese comes back in time. So it's always weird to me, like watching these two films and how they, and I've used the word mirror each other like probably 5 times now, but sort of as they mirror each other, it's interesting to watch how both John Connor and Skynet don't really exist in the future unless they exist in the past. And so, you know, like where we have John Connor happens because Reese goes back in time in the first one. Well, then they talk about how the work that is used based on the damaged T800 is what creates Skynet eventually. So it's sort of like you can't have one without the other, but you know, it's that weird sort of paradox trippiness.
I love that. That's my favorite thing about these films. I think like at its core is that like it just embraces this idea of like this weird loop of stuff that
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, but yeah.
No, it's fine. It sort of also reminds me in May, to your point about the sequel that you have described, which would definitely recommend checking out. It sort of plays with that idea a little bit more and changes
Dark Fate,
things.
is that what you're?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
it was so good. I loved it, and I thought it was a great
Me
twist.
too. I think
Mhm.
that's the closest they ever come to like having like a really like genuinely like great sequel. Like we'll talk in a second about some sequels, but
Yeah.
that's the most recent one. Linda Hamilton comes back.
Oh yeah, so
Terminator Dark
badass.
Fate.
Yeah. So that sort of idea about how, and you're right, in some ways it's the future isn't always set, and it morphs a little bit, and it, you know, it depends on the past, and the past depends on the future. And so in some ways you're like, Judgment Day may or may not still happen, or some variation may or may not still happen. So I would definitely side on the idea of, let's keep the T800 around just in case, because I don't know how many times they can keep sending people back in time. Like certainly this device has like a certain amount of power that it can or can't use, and who knows who's got control of it. And if, you know, they keep sending people back in time, how are they doing that? You know, there's a lot of logistical stuff behind it that you kind of, I mean, suspend disbelief for as well. But you know, you're like, I don't know how many shots we're going to get, so maybe just keep him around for like that set duration of time, so that we'll be okay if we need him, and if not, then you know, take our chances. But yeah, I was kind of on the same fence where I thought, does he really have to do it? You know, I get why, but no, you need him. He's
I mean,
really
let's
cool.
just admit it. Like as an audience member, like take all that aside, you just don't want to see like John lose that companion, right? That's been such a bright spot for him, right? I think that's, I mean, the thumbs up, you know, at the of course is like just such a masterful touch. It's like one little last gesture of, this is something you taught me. Also kind of saying like it's gonna be okay. Not the cynic in me, but the realist in me that like, you know, it, to burst my own bubble, I do love, it's like it's a little touch, like a blink and you miss it thing, but like where, you know, he clearly like says to John, I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do. And he hugs John, and like on its surface level you're like, oh, this is a, you know, like a nice like gesture. And then he is complete, like the T800, when he looks at Sarah, you realize he's just doing it to like, you know, get John to consent to like what he needs to do. Like there's no tenderness there, and it's kind of a heartbreaking like realization where you're like, oh, like he doesn't feel the same affection because he's a machine, right? Like he's not really capable of feeling the same affection. So it's just a little bit more heartbreaking for me like in that moment, because like, you know, he is hugging him, embracing him, but it's very empty. It's a one-sided kind of thing, you know.
I was just gonna add, like, I love looking into like different theories of time travel. And there are actually two theories that kind of like deal with like resolving paradoxes, like the fact that John wouldn't exist if Judgment Day didn't happen, which listeners can go read about on their own. But there was one idea, which is that everything is like predetermined basically in the universe. And if you change something, something else will happen to make the same kind of end result occur, right? So like I would say with like someone else inventing the like Terminator tech or whatever. The other one is just that anytime you go back in time, you're creating a parallel timeline and a parallel universe or world, basically. So it's like I guess kind of like the multiverse theory resolves the time travel paradoxes, which is cool. Anyway, so I think it is fine. I don't think it's a paradox.
I love it. Yeah, it's kind of like that's like the where like the premise of Avengers Endgame comes from a little bit, is that kind of like split like reality thing. Well, I do want to the time has come to make a final judgment call on if this film is a unicorn or dead horse. I'll just go ahead and go first because my answer is going to be obvious. I think it's unicorn all the way. Like it's a shining example of how you do a sequel, how you can largely retread like old ground and do new and interesting things while still kind of maintaining the identity of the franchise. And I think what this film has in spades that like the first one was lacking maybe a bit, like not through like, you know, lack of trying, I guess, but just didn't really work for me much, is like heart. I feel like this movie has so much heart, where like the first like genuine heart, like where like the first movie, a lot of that stuff comes off as cheese. Like there's supposed to be romance, but as Mace pointed out, it doesn't really land too well most of the time. I think this movie just has a big old golden heart, and I love it and will always love it. So unicorn for me.
Definitely a unicorn. Like you said, it took something that it built off of what came before it. It paid respect to what came before it, but it didn't try to just copy it. I mean, it was in a lot of ways reflective of the original source material, and there might have been a similar pacing in certain scenes or mirroring of that. But it, ultimately, at the end of it, it was trying to be something different, but also build off of that and make it more, to build more of that world and understanding of the characters and see evolution of those characters in ways that you might not have necessarily expected from the first one. And so to have that be the pleasant surprise, not only in the villain of the story and who's now the, you know, the protector, but also to see the characters that, or the character that you're familiar with from the first one, and how she changes and becomes more empowered, and then how that then transitions to the next generation, and actually seeing John Connor, who we only hear about in name and never really know about as a character in the first one. To see where that's going to go is really cool. So definitely unicorn for me.
I'm not gonna break the vote, unicorn. But yeah, I mean, my reasons are pretty much explained by the past like hour we've been talking. But yeah, I thought overall it was a fun movie on its own, and I feel like the only counter argument I'd have to it being a unicorn is that it is so similar to the original, and like almost a redo, but it's a really, really well done redo. And I feel like it takes all of the like creativity and camp of the first one and adds like a lot more, well, budget, professionalism, and like cool action stuff to it in a way that just makes it work way better. So, unicorn.
Yeah, it's just more, I think it's just a more substantial movie overall. Like if I was going to summarize it and, you know, like a word, like it's just like substantial. This movie feels like there's a lot there, you know. Well, but whether or not like some of its like heady ideas like actually are as interesting as it thinks it is, like I think at the end of the day it doesn't really matter because it's entertaining as hell. Like, you know what I mean? Just it's very successful. So yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad that we're unanimous on that one. That felt like kind of a softball one when I threw it onto our list, but I just love the movie too much to not throw it on there. So
yeah,
it's all good.
May I believe you have a little trivia on your board. So before we pivot to a little fun game, why don't you go ahead and take it away for a second?
Yeah, as we transition from our super serious analysis to fun time, my trivia question is: which Terminator of the franchise, which film had the biggest budget? And just to recap, the franchise includes the original Terminator, Terminator 2: Judgment Day, Terminator 3, Terminator Salvation, Terminator Genesis, and Terminator Dark Fate.
I'm gonna say 3. That's my guess.
Okay. Locking it in?
Yeah.
What about you, Will?
I'm going to go with Dark Fate because it's James Cameron and he likes money. And I know T2 was a lot more than the original Terminator. So I feel like he's just going to keep asking for more money to make that sequel. So I'm going to go with Dark Fate.
Okay, Chris, Terminator 3 had a budget of 170 million. Dark Fate had a budget of 185 million.
Ah, damn.
And Salvation had a budget of 200 million.
Oh,
so
man.
it is actually Terminator Salvation.
Christian Bale.
That was my second guess. Like, yeah.
It was just Christian Bale's
I'm assuming
salary.
it was just his salary, yeah.
I'm sure that was a contributing factor.
Yeah.
So here's my quick little like one sentence review of each of these like sequels. If you're on the fence, anybody, but May especially since you've watched the first two. I think 3 is the least offensive, like, and probably like one I'm most numb to. Like I think it's interesting like to see where they like decided to go like as a sequel, but not very interesting overall. Not bad, not good. Salvation, if you want more of the future, like that's your movie. If you want to see the War with the Machines, I think it has some great ideas. And R.I.P. Anton Yelchin's in it. It's really nice to see him when he was still alive and acting before he tragically died. That's a very, very interesting movie, if a little uneven. I did not see Genesis, so I don't have much to offer other than I've heard it's like abysmal. And I think it's PG-13, right? that wasn't that one
I think so.
PG-13.
Yeah.
I've heard it's terrible though. And then Dark Fate is by far the best of the sequels after 2. It's not as good as 1, but like if you're coming at this like as a newbie, you might think it's superior to the first one, but I was very pleasantly surprised. Avoid spoilers. The opening of that movie, the opening 5 minutes was what sold me on it. I thought it was such an interesting, cool surprise, and that's all I'll say.
Okay.
Agreed. I'll throw it out there for Genesis. I didn't hate it. It was different. It was trying to do something else. I didn't vibe with it. I didn't want to roll with that, but I appreciated it for the fact of what it tried to do. It tried to, like, I guess in its own way, this whole subverting of expectation, or like flipping everything and like suddenly taking the characters that and changing them all, just shuffling them around, but like the same basic storyline, but just like, what if? It was sort of like a Marvel's What If, but for Terminator. And it's not necessarily like awful. It's just not, I don't know, it doesn't have the same level as the other films, I feel like. So I would say appreciate it as like a fanfic, but it's definitely not it's not at the top of the list.
So the 50 Shades of Grey to
Yeah, that's Twilight.
Twilight.
I hate that I know that reference.
Yeah.
Even, but yeah.
Yep.
Oh boy.
I do want to
Good to
also,
know.
while we have 2 seconds, I just want to throw it out there for Lance Henriksen and Bill Paxton for being the only 2 people to have fought a Terminator, a Predator, and an Alien. And so that's just, I have to mention some names there and give credit where credit's due.
Yeah, the sci-fi hat trick of like, I think all of them are killed by each of those, right? Like, spoiler alert, I guess, for some of those movies that we haven't talked about.
Yeah, I mean, unless did Bill Paxton, when he was the punk in the first Terminator, did he just get thrown around, or did he actually get murdered? I can't remember.
Oh no, I think he's like canonically supposed to be dead. Yeah.
Okay, then yes. Yeah,
So,
they
what an
all
honor,
did,
man.
so.
No, but good shout. That's amazing. Yeah. So let's end with a little keyword countdown. I did make a new selection of films here. Again, try to pick stuff that I felt like both of you would know. And if you haven't seen it, certainly like know enough about. As a quick recap, so Keyword Countdown is a game created by Gavin Murphy from RKG Video, which just released a new series of Retry. They're playing Demon Souls. It's a lot of fun. He has given his blessing for us to use this. So again, this is not a Screen Quest creation. This is a Gavin Murphy special. The way the game works is I've got 5 films, 10 clues apiece. I'm going to read out the clues one at a time. The clues are IMDb plot keywords from the site imdb.com. Going to start very generic and work my way to more specific. The 10th clue is usually a giveaway. Will and May, whatever clue you guess it on, you will obtain a certain amount of points given how many clues are remaining. So if you guess it on clue 5, you get 6 points because you do get credit for the clue that you guessed it on. Simple enough. Nice. All right. Film number 1. Are we ready?
Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
All right. I almost said the film title. Jesus Christ. All right. Clue number 1. Crying in the shower. Crying in the shower. Throw out a Hail Mary. Yeah. It's these are vague clues. So for the first few.
Casino Royale.
That is a great guess, but it's not.
That is a great guess. Holy shit.
Yep. Yep.
Nice.
Poor Vespa's. Yeah. All right. Clue number 2. Self-sacrifice.
This could be off because I haven't seen it, but Midsummer?
Nope. It's not that.
I think someone gives
the clue. Life, but... I'm not going to comment on one way or the other. May or may not be accurate. All right. Clue number 3. Father-son relationship. All right. I'm going to move on to clue number 4. Teamwork. Teamwork.
The X-Files.
Nope. All right. Clue number 5. We're going to start kind of narrowing the scope a little bit now. Headphones. Headphones. I mean, again, they're like no negative impacts to guessing, so feel free.
The only thing that comes to mind for headphones is Baby Driver, which doesn't fit the other.
Yeah, that's a great movie though, and
Yeah,
you're right.
that's
Headphones
true.
definitely fits the bill there. Teamwork, you could say, definitely fits the
Yeah,
bill there.
for a while.
Yeah, for a while. All right, clue number 6: sticky hands. Sticky hands.
Is this a Spider-Man movie?
He's not talking. I think it is, and I have no idea which one.
Hmm.
Clue
Which
number
Spider-Man?
7: origin of a hero. Origin of a hero.
It's got to be
The
Spider-Man.
original Spider.
Yeah,
It's
got to
not.
be Spider-Man.
Okay.
It's not.
I don't remember any of the subtitles.
Clue number 8: CGI animation. CGI
geez.
animation.
Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2. The Amazing Spider-Man. Spider-Man Far From Home.
Venom?
All right, so it's not Spider-Man. We're serious about this? Okay.
Clue number 9: multiverse.
Into the Spider-Verse?
Yes, it is Into the
Yes.
Spider-Verse. Good job.
Wait a minute.
May.
Hold on.
You
Hold
didn't, I
on.
promise. You said everything but that.
Hold
Sorry,
on.
man. That is 2 points.
Arguably the best Spider-Man movie. But yeah.
It's my favorite.
Agree. Yeah. The final clue, which wouldn't have really helped you from where you were at, for you two, was spider bite. So you had narrowed it down enough, but yeah. So to kind of recap, crying in the shower, self-sacrifice, father-son relationship, teamwork, headphones, sticky hand. So Miles always has his headphones.
Yeah.
Origin of the hero, CGI animation. Nice job. Nice job. All right, it's 2
The
points for me.
only one I remember the name of.
Nice.
That's all you needed. That's all you needed.
That's right. It's all that matters.
All right, 2 points for me. Nicely done. Next film, clue number 1: one word title.
Amelie.
Armageddon.
Either one could be right, but
starting at
neither
the
are.
beginning of the alphabet. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Neither of those are correct, but fine guesses for the clue.
Jaws.
Yeah.
Oh
no.
damn. Terminator.
Clue. It's the Terminator, but what an idiot. No. Love you, buddy. Here we go. Clue number 2: birthday party. Clue number 3: Morse code. Clue number 4: public urination. Public urination.
Parasite.
It is.
Yes.
Wow. Nice job.
I hate that that's the clue that made it click for me.
Nice.
No, yeah. I mean, it's a very one-off scene. So I was like, I'm gonna put this in here because I don't know. I'm like with the clues before, but
I mean,
really good job.
All of the toilet stuff was super gross.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, really good job. The remaining clues were mistaken for a ghost, allergy, family relationships, basement, class differences, and South Korea.
Yeah, those
So,
last 3 were
again, try to
Good ones.
it's hard to make this game. I feel like
It
right? 'Cause
is.
a lot of it is so subjective as far as like how hard a clue, how difficult a clue is, because certain things resonate, like with you. So that's so 9 points for me. Will, you're still in it, my guy. Do not worry. There's plenty. We have 3 films remaining. Plenty of points left up for grabs. Here we go. Here's your next film. Clue number 1: cult film.
Troll 2.
Imagine. It is
Rocky
not.
Horror.
It is not. Both good guesses for a first clue.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
It is not.
Pulp Fiction.
It is not. All right, we're gonna go to clue number 2: written by director.
Sure, it's not Troll 2.
I mean, it fits the bill so far, but no, still not Troll 2.
Sure, it's not Pulp Fiction.
I mean, you guys nailed the first 2 clues without even knowing it, so well done there. But no. Clue number 3: This is an awesome one. I need to click on this later to see what other movies fall into this, but musical sequence in a non-musical work. Clue number 4, hiding under a table.
Die Hard.
Aside from the musical sequence, not
I was
bad
going to say, I
guess.
don't remember there being music in that movie, but or a musical, but still.
Is
That
there
would
a
be amazing.
Jurassic Park the musical?
Yeah, there should be now. I mean,
I know, right?
I mean that's a Broadway.
Yeah.
Wait, nope.
Back to the Future.
Nope.
I feel like this musical number clue is going to get me.
Clue 5, dysfunctional family. I'm gonna start to narrow in the scope here. Next clue, Chicago, Illinois. Chicago, Illinois. Okay.
It's not like Saturday Night Fever, is it?
Nope. Good guess. So I'm going to summarize the clues and then read out the next clue. Cult film,
Okay.
written by director, musical sequence in a non-musical work, hiding under a table, dysfunctional family, Chicago, Illinois, boredom is your next clue. Boredom.
It's not
Okay.
coming.
Next clue, coming of age. Coming of age. No.
This makes me feel of like the film that Elliot Page was in, where they were roller blading, but I can't. I don't think all the clues line up. And I don't remember the title.
This is also shot in the dark. It's not Rope, is it?
It's not. No.
Okay.
That would be amazing.
Musical number. Yeah.
Not-
Well, they're singing. They're singing
Yeah,
in it.
yeah.
Is there?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch Rope.
They're playing the piano.
I couldn't remember where it was set though. It's not Chicago, is it?
I think it's New York City for
Okay.
Rope. Pretty sure.
Mhm.
Because there's like references to Ivy League schools and stuff, but
There's definitely boredom and coming of age.
there very much is. Yep. And hiding under a table if you're the point of view of the corpse, I suppose. But all right. Clue number 9. Here's a biggie. Brat Pack. Brat Pack. Uh-oh. Not ringing any bells?
I feel like it should, but it's going to be like that one film I haven't watched that will be on the list of films that people would be like, you haven't seen this?
We'll-
Same
we'll-
here.
We'll talk about it after the like that particular clue. All right. Well, here's your final clue. Detention.
Breakfast Club?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Breakfast Club.
Oh, yeah, man.
Good
Damn.
job, May.
Oh, yeah, good
1
job.
point to
Seriously.
May.
That's awesome.
So
Thanks.
cult film written by director, obviously John Hughes wrote and directed it. Musical sequence in a non-musical work. I think when they're all like, kind of goofing off there at film, hiding under a table, dysfunctional family, Chicago, Illinois. He's famous for using Chicago as the
Yeah.
backdrop of all his films. Boredom, obviously. Coming of age. Brat Pack was used to refer to the group of actors that regularly appeared in his film. So Molly Ringwald, what's his face, Anthony Michael Hall, like all those like repeat actors. So that was like kind of the affectionate name in the 80s. So nice job, May.
Yeah.
All right.
I haven't seen it. I pulled that out of the night.
Oh, really? Oh man.
Nice.
Yeah, which is especially shameful because when I was in high school, our senior shirts had a Breakfast Club like quote on the back, and
Mm.
I still
Bunch
haven't
of
seen it.
posers. Oh my god. Jeez Louise.
I did not
Uh,
design it. All right.
All right, penultimate film. Here we go. New film, new set of clues. Title directed by female. So title directed by female.
Wonder Woman.
Good guess, but it is not that.
The Farewell.
Not that. Also a good guess. All right, here is your next clue. Slow motion scene.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Good guess, but no. Love that movie. That movie's good.
Yeah, that was really good.
Next clue. Reading a trashy novel. Reading a trashy novel. All right. Next clue. Framing device. Framing device.
I feel like I should know this.
Next clue. Drunken singing. Drunken singing.
Coyote Ugly.
I'd guess it. Not Coyote Ugly. Not a bad guess though. All right. Gonna start narrowing the scope here. Clue number 6, 1940s.
Oh.
1940s. Okay. Next clue, female friendship. Female friendship. All right. Clue number 8, Cooperstown, New York. Cooperstown, New York. If you know what's significant about Cooperstown, New York, that's a big old clue.
Mm.
I know that at some point I knew what was significant about Cooperstown, New York. I can't remember it.
Okay. Well, your next clue is baseball movie.
A League of Their Own.
It is A League of
Nice.
Their Own.
Nice.
And he's on the
done.
board.
So what is significant about Cooperstown is that's where the Baseball Hall of Fame is. So
Okay. Yeah, my dad has definitely told me that multiple times.
that's all right. It's one of those things that can go in one ear and out the other if you don't care
Yeah.
about baseball. But final clue was sports league. So that was the giveaway. So title directed by female, slow motion scene, reading a trashy novel, framing device, drunken singing, 1940s, female friendship, Cooperstown, New York, baseball movie, and sports league. Also a very good movie. One of my grandmother's very favorite movies. Like she absolutely loved it. Nice job, Will. It's 2 points. All right. So a quick point check. Will has 2 points and May has 10. So Will, you could technically win. I think, let me do my math. So obviously if you get on the first, you get 10 points. If you got on the second, you would get 9 points plus your 2 is 11. You can tie up to the third clue. So we would have to do a tiebreaker. So still in it technically, all to play for, as they say on Keyword Countdown.
Nice.
All right.
High
Final
pressure.
film.
High pressure.
Final film. Are you ready?
Yes.
Ready.
All right. Clue number 1, famous score. Famous score.
Inception.
I would not
Star
do that
Wars.
to myself. Both good guesses, both wrong.
Amadeus.
Also a great guess, but it's not that. Take one more stab in the dark.
Dune.
Oh, nice.
No, just big on Mr. Zimmer today. I see, but no.
I'm always big on Mr. Zimmer.
All right. Clue number 2, based on a novel. Based on a novel.
The Prestige.
Blade Runner.
Nope. Not a bad guess. None of these have been bad guesses, really. All right. Well, here's your make or break clue. False accusation.
May, I think you're going to take this one, but let's see. Great music, false accusation, based on a book.
I got nothing.
Okay.
Yep, I'll have to concede it, but I'm excited to find out what it is.
Yeah, let's keep
You can still
playing.
make it.
I wanna-
You can still,
yeah.
Oh yeah. No, we'll go all the way to the end. All right. Next clue, Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona. Okay. Next clue, old woman. Old woman.
Man, nothing's clicking today.
It's all right. That's all right. We're gonna, we're
Old
to the
country
point.
for no men.
Old country for no men. That's amazing. No, it is not that. All right. Here we go. We're gonna start dialing it in a little bit. Clue number 6, voyeurism. Voyeurism.
Psycho? No.
It is. It is.
Oh, damn.
Nicely
Oh, damn.
done,
Yeah.
buddy. Yes, that is indeed Psycho.
I didn't realize that
forgot.
was. I didn't realize that was set in Phoenix.
That's, yeah, likewise.
The opening of it is in Phoenix, so that's where the story begins.
Oh.
And then she is driving from Phoenix to, I think, somewhere in California to visit, or maybe it's elsewhere. But yeah, Phoenix is like the title card at the very beginning. Where Marion Crane is. Very good, man.
Nice.
Remaining clues: stolen money, taxidermy, deeply disturbed person, shower. So
Done.
Nice.
good
Dun,
job.
Done.
So that's
Done.
7 points for Will, and what do we say? That is 10 points for May. Nice job. Very close.
Booyah.
match.
Well played.
Well done, both of you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Well done, both of you. Well, let's go ahead and draw our next main quest card, and then we will skedaddle. So I'm giving these a little shuffle. And here we are. It is a Fade to Black. All right. So let me consult my film list. Bear with me just a moment. All right. And the film is, drumroll please, Deer Hunter. So the final scene of Deer Hunter is what we'll be talking about. One shot is what I have in quotation marks. Have either of you seen The Deer Hunter before?
I've actually never heard of it.
Yeah.
Oh, it is phenomenal. So it is a Michael Cimino directed film starring Christopher Walken, Robert De Niro, and John Cazale. I think I'm saying his name right. Played Fredo in The Godfather. Won a ton of awards. Centers around a group of friends. I think you live in Pittsburgh that go off to Vietnam and how it impacts and changes them. Not a very happy film, as many of the films in that time period were. Well, let's go ahead and skedaddle. Enjoy the rest of our respective weekends. Thank you both, as always, for joining me. You can find us on social media at ScreenQuest Pod on Twitter. Feel free to interact with the show, tweet us, participate in our lovely Friday film polls, and like, share, and subscribe. As always, really appreciate that. Shout out to Mr. David Williams for giving us a little love on Facebook. That was much appreciated, my guy. Thank you so much for sharing the podcast. That's how we grow. But until next time, we love you.
Bye, guys.